Good evening, everyone. I welcome all of our attendees who have joined us on YouTube for today's Qbinar, that is quarantine webinar, which will be led by industry experts on the topic, the evolving dynamics of customer experience with value-based selling. Please note, we will be conducting a Q&A session towards the end of today's panel discussion. So if you have any questions for our panelists, please feel free to use the chat box on YouTube to share your questions. On your behalf, I will direct those questions to our speakers. Alternatively, you could also send us an email with your questions. A brief introduction about Creating Values. Creating Values is an ISO certified management consulting firm. We provide strategic advisory services to organizations across industries. The domains in which we provide our consulting services include people and culture, which is our HR advisory arm. Technology and risk is our IT consulting arm. Business strategy consulting, brand strategy consulting, and executive search consulting. We have been operational for 7 years and we've completed more than 225 plus projects. We have worked across more than 15 industries and we have as high as 90% of repeat orders from our customers. So if you have any queries regarding the kind of consulting services we provide, what are the varied domains in which we operate, please feel free to get in touch with us and we will be happy to walk you through the details. Just a reminder to all of our attendees, on 25th of September, that is on next Friday at 4 o'clock, we will be conducting our next Qbinar on the topic maneuvering through the maze of virtual hiring. The current pandemic has actually compelled organizations to change the ways in which they do multiple things, including the hiring format or the hiring process, which was followed within the organizations. Thus, join us and listen to TA professionals on 25th of September about how are the ways that they have, changed their own hiring process, what are the best practices that they are adopting, and what is that future holds when it comes to virtual hiring. So please make a note of it and register for this interesting Qbinar of 25th of September, maneuvering through the maze of virtual hiring. So with that, we will be starting our panel discussion for today. So just a quick introduction. First of all, I am Sujata, the Associate Director with Creating Values. The topic of our today's panel discussion is the evolving dynamics of customer experience with value-based selling. The ever-evolving dynamics of customer experience compels business leaders to design strategies and to create a pull in the market. The customers of today are very conscious about the kind of purchase decisions that they make, about the kind of companies that they wish to be associated with. They always think about the value proposition that the company can provide, not just to them, but also to society and environment on whole. So today we have been joined by business leaders for this interesting discussion. We have with us Mr. Partha Dey, the director at U4RAD and PAS Digital. He has a demonstrated history of working in the information technology and healthcare services industry. He is skilled in application of emerging technology like AI, ML, cognitive, blockchain, IoT, cloud, and digital for healthcare organizations. He also specializes in healthcare operations management, customer relationship management, quality management, team building, etc. Our next speaker is Mr. Anil Gattu. He is the Chief Financial Officer of Orbis Financial Limited. He is a chartered accountant and business development professional in banking and capital markets. Mr. Anil has over 2 decades of extensive experience in finance and accounts, custody, broker lending, banker to issue, credit analysis, MIS, etc. He has previously worked with ICICI Bank for over 12 years and also with Johnson Matthey, 𝗕𝗂𝘀𝗶𝗲𝗀𝗀 India, to name a few of the organizations. So it is my privilege to interact with these esteemed dignitaries and to moderate today's panel session. I would request the speakers to turn on their cameras and to unmute themselves so that we can start with the panel discussion of today. So my first question is common to both the panelists. So we could start with Mr. Partha Day. Mr. Partha, you could share your views first and then we could move to Mr. Anil. So, Mr. Partha, over the past 1 or 2 decades, what are the major changes you have witnessed in customers' expectations and the changes in how companies are focusing on creating values for their customers?
Thank you, Sujata. Thank you for the invitations and the opportunity. This is an excellent time for us. Otherwise, while we all are stuck at home, but this gives an opportunity to sit in a kurta and then attend your webinar. Probably this is the first time I have started in my kurtas. Otherwise, it was more in with a Western attire all the times. So everything has some positivity in life, right? So that's there. And also this time has given us opportunity to learn. Earlier, what was happening is that we all were, honestly, we are running behind some targets. And when I go back and then try to reevaluate a couple of things and find out that some of the targets were absolutely non-essential targets. What we were doing probably, if we are not doing, nothing would have changed in the world. So the Qbinar and another opportunity for us to learn while you are organizing it on every week from various speakers, and for us also to share our experiences and learning with others. It's an excellent platform that you guys have come up with, and thanks for inviting us and giving us the opportunity to share my thoughts. I would like to put these questions under 2 buckets. One is that I would like to share my experience when I have worked for an organization and looked at organizations in the B2B segment. Like I work for IBM and I sell to various business organizations. It's like a B2B and how these changes has happened. Also, during my hospital days, I have seen a huge amount of changes in a B2C environment when we were our selling point was the, if selling may not be the right word to use, but our service point was the patients, right? But at the end, we do some selling to the patients as well. And nowadays, patients all know about this. So let me start with this patient's perspective first. Over a period of 2 decades, if you look at, I started my journey in Delhi, started with Max Healthcare, and exactly in 2000 when we came up with the first Max Healthcare facilities, we did a small market study. Like any new organization coming in the market, they will do that. We wanted to see that what people were expecting Max to bring a new way of servicing them, right? But that is the time when one is that people were not too sure. So what I remember, though it's 20 years back, that most of the cases people are not too sure. First question comes, and I did 1 or 2 interview myself. First question comes that you guys are mad that you are asking that what you expect from a healthcare. If you have a problem, you go to a doctor, he will treat you, that's fine. What service element you are talking about here, right? So this is more like only the clinical care which was kind of bothering them. They know that the other things are not that good, bad, etc. But we never seen that people were demanding of any services then, even from the hospital perspective. But they were paying for the services, right? But irrespective of their paying or not, they were not demanding. If I run the same survey today in 2020, the same survey result is completely different. And you remember when we met in Artemis at that time, I did a little analysis and tried to see that how my customers were looking at and whether the same thing is true. It is completely different. The interactions, etc., more towards that you are in a consumer industry. We don't care. I am purchasing a service. I'm purchasing a healthcare service which is equivalent to any other services. So I have every right to demand my services. And we have had several interactions where people do come and say that this doctor is 15 minutes late. I said, 15 minutes, is that a big deal? I said, yes, it's a big deal because you have committed and I have 10 other things linked. So then sometime we even gone and said that, okay, madam or sir, what we'll do is that we'll return your money. He said, no return, you have to compensate my loss. So then how do I compensate your loss? He said, what is my earning per minute or per hour or per day? You should compensate that 15 minutes lost time like this. So the people have gone up to that extent and they are thinking in their mind, I'm not coming here, there is a good, bad, ugly, right? Probably the similar way, if you look at healthcare services are never being dealt in Western countries. Over there, you wait in queues and whenever your queues come and then only you come and avail those services, right? So I remember my some healthcare facilities that I have availed when I was abroad. Most of the time it was like office mein chutti le lo, take off from that day from office because you are going to a medical service offices and you are not too sure. So the point I'm trying to make that over a period of time, the consumer become very demanding, and rightly so is that they are also aware of their right. Now, a lot of times it happens that consumer also need to be told, or they need to understand that what are the different things they can demand and what are the different things that they have to also accept. Because in healthcare, time management is something which is not as critical as managing the illness. If at the day end we are able to treat the patient better, if his clinical outcome is good, we feel that he should be happy. But if you study the hospital feedback, the most of the feedback, what is bothering the patient is the discharge waiting time. Patient would come and say that, everything was fine, I was ready to go home. But you know what happened? That I'm waiting for 3 hours or 4 hours for the discharge. And at the day end, after even a successful medical condition, successful outcome, for the purpose the patient was admitted, we have a dissatisfied customer because the discharge time was higher. Now you may say, what is this here? What is the purpose of the visit? The visit of the purpose is not the discharge in 2 minutes. The purpose of the visit is to get treated well. You have a problem, we have solved your problem or helped you to solve the problem, and you should be happy. But that's not the way it works. So that customer dynamics and the expectation has really changed. We have to be absolutely careful in understanding what they're expecting today. And also we have to be very careful in delivering those. All the boxes has to be ticked. Only that medical box ticked is not going to make a customer happy or make him come back to us. A lot of times I have heard that, I think this hospital is a very good hospital. I would love to go there, but the discharge time is very less, discharge time is very long. And if you go, there is no bed. Admission time is a problem. But do you think that these are the criteria for evaluating a hospital? But these are, because the similar services are available elsewhere. So there is a huge change and the shift that we have seen, particularly in healthcare, when we talk about the services and the people expectation about the services. So probably the next time, when I get an opportunity, I'll talk about my experience and how the B2B part of the changes that I have observed during my stay in IBM.
Great. So it's not just the qualifications of the doctors and the specialists, but rather even the admission time and the discharge time, the TAT on it becomes essential when it comes to providing healthcare services. And who would have thought that that is a major factor? So thank you, Mr. Partha, for sharing your views. Mr. Anil, the same question to you, that in the past 1 or 2 decades, what are the major changes that you have witnessed when it comes to customer expectations? And how is it that companies are focusing on creating values for their customers?
First of all, thank you for inviting me to the Q webinar. And I think you guys are doing a fantastic work in times of COVID, when everybody is at home and attending phone calls, video calls, day in, day out with office. I think this is a healthy break for the body also and for the mind also, because you get to learn new things. You think on a different topic, which is different from your regular work. So coming back to the topic, so I was actually comparing my thought process with what Partha sir was saying. So the sector and the segment which I am about to talk is totally diametrically different, but the experience is actually same. So he was comparing with healthcare. So I would like to compare it with banking. Just imagine 2 decades back, the condition of the PSU sector, that is the public sector banks. So it was a privilege if you could open a bank account. You had to get a reference of a person who had an account with the bank. You had to take his introduction basically. So it was kind of a reference thing. And the gates of I remember as a child going with my parents in a bank, the main gates were actually locked with that steel grill so that nobody can enter. And the customers also had to bend their heads to get into the bank. That was the state. And I think I have seen since my early days, I think till 1990s, mid 1990s, the culture of having the customer to bend while coming inside the branch. That was the feeling. So when you go inside a service institution with a bent head, the expectations are also very low. So you're very happy if you get the things done. So a very basic thing like getting a demand draft issued actually took 3-4 hours, 5 hours. So I remember while doing my CA, we had to get the demand draft for our examinations, which I had to send to Delhi. So the first process was to go to a bank. It was a big PSU bank, I will not name. I used to go in the morning along with the study material for the CA. And then I used to request the manager that I will sit in front of your office outside his cabin for 4-5 hours till my DD is made. So please don't disturb me till then and don't ask me to leave. So in 4-5 hours, they would give that DD to me and I would go to the bank, to the post office, another line there. And then I think after 6-7 years, I used to come home. So that was the stage. So in two decades, the condition has happened that from a condition where you actually felt very right in opening a bank account to actually you getting pissed off by the calls you get from banks asking you to please take a personal loan, please take a credit card loan, and they're actually hankering after you. So what happened that a sector of the service providers, as the banks, they thought that they are doing the best thing that is possible that time. But there was another set of people who were always not happy with that kind of service. It included the customers. So another set of companies, banks came up who thought of delivering the goods in a different way, in a way where the customer was happy. So I remember during my induction in ICICI Bank, one of the guys who was presenting there, he said that, see, he just hit the right chord with me. He said that, you see, the banks issue a demand draft, they take around 4 hours. I said, yes, sir, I know that. And he said that we are actually making it a 15-minute process. And to top it up, I am making it free in ICICI Bank. I said that, but you will lose all the DD commission, because I always remember whenever there was a 1,000 rupees demand draft, there was a 40 rupees something charge. I don't know what service they used to charge me for 40 rupees. So ICICI Bank, since they were not a big bank in 2004-5, so they had decided to do away with the commission charge, and they made it a 15-minute process. So they were not affected monetarily because they were anyway not a big bank, but on the service side, they excelled. So they asked their customers to give a call to the branch manager, and in 15 minutes, the delivery of the demand draft was delivered to his home. That was an amazing jump and leap in the customer services. And so this is an example. So from where we have started and where we have reached. So from a push kind of a thing, it has come to where the customers are actually choosing between the number of banks they can choose. And the availability of vendors was also a limiting choice. There were more local players. Now you also have, so I'm not now talking only about banking, I'm talking about general services. So you had, for example, in cars, you only had few domestic players. Now you have a very global spectrum of all the big brands coming into India, and they're pushing it. And you can see in every segment, it was more of your needs, your service needs, and a price point. Service need and a price point, which you actually thought about before you bought a service. Now it is actually about experience. It is about experience. So things have moved from a service price kind of a thing to having an experience. That is where smart players in the market are able to actually get money out of that premium thing, which they call giving you an experience, because experience is more true with your emotions, right? Rather than thinking whether I have to buy a toothpaste for 5 rupees or 10 rupees, right? So earlier you used to have toothpaste for say 5 rupees, one was for 5 rupees, another was 6. Now you have 10 different types of toothpaste for offering different kinds of things. One is herbal, one is salty, one is something else. Though the teeth of everybody are yellow, but they are offering you X number of things. So people actually feel experience. Then there is Ayurvedic. MNCs are selling Ayurvedic. So the kind of branding they're doing. So thing is that choice, the customer is now spoiled for choice. And actually he is driving the numbers. If the customer is thinking his experience with respect to certain things, with respect to a brand, with respect to what he feels right for the society, environment, a lot of things are going into his mind, because there is so much awareness. Earlier, the MNCs or the Indian companies, they just used to produce a thing and just sell it in the market by way of marketing. Now you have this whole big, you call it animal, monster, a good thing called the web, the social network. So people actually are connected so much socially that a small flaw in a brand or a product will get magnified a million times, and before they know, things are like over for them. So things have changed from a service perspective. The service levels were really down, say 2 decades back, 1 decade down. Now they are almost, I think, they are now almost touching the AI kind of a thing. You have all those bots replying to you on the websites, though they don't understand most of the things, but still, I appreciate that they have been put into practice by big banks, at least, and all those insurance companies, where you get a semblance of a reply, and you feel that, okay, something better will happen in future, because right now the ability level of these bots are not so much. So things are changing. Responsiveness of brands are changing. Earlier, you used to write a register letter to them. They would answer in 2 months, 3 months time. Now you just put a tweet on Twitter regarding a complaint, and I think the response comes within few hours. So I think there's a marked change in terms of what the customers used to experience and what they are now experiencing.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Anil. In fact, one very significant thing that you've touched, but very subtly, was the impact of social media. You know, something so simple that rather you're saying that if you tweet something, you might get a response in a couple of hours. But, you know, if you have the right kind of followers and you have multiple followers, you might get a response in a couple of minutes rather than even hours. So social media is where has become like a major strength of customers, and that is where they are, you know, very much visible, audible, and they are demanding the services that they think that they deserve and they are paying for. So thank you so much to both the speakers for sharing your views. I'll move to my next question. Sure. So Mr. Partha, first if you could answer, and then again we'll move back to Mr. Anil. So Mr. Partha, do industry regulations pose any challenge towards ensuring superior customer experience, or do you feel that compliance-based approach is actually helpful?
Oh, fantastic question. Here, regulation, can play in both the side. So let me come with the positive first and then go to the otherwise. I'm not too sure if you have all heard about something called NHDB, which was being announced by our dear Prime Minister on 15th of August, where he said that like Aadhaar card, every individual should have something called a health card, right? And he has a very big ambition, right? And he feels that by the way of having a data exchange platform, the way the banks have worked out, similarly the healthcare also should work out. Like Anil has rightly said, the experience of going to the bank. Now today, what bank has done is that bank has thrown the queue outside the bank. So there is nobody goes to the bank, right? Earlier we used to talk about queue management. We said, why you need a queue? So then the thinking process has to be the process in such a manner that there is no queue. So similarly here, Prime Minister has announced, and this is a very ambitious project, like similar to what he has announced for the Ayushman Bharat as an extension to the similar project. And a lot of people were involved in developing this, where people would be looking at exchanging of health data the way the bank is exchanging data. Today, it is possible for me to go to any ATM and take my money out. This is only possible because the banks are exchanging their data. If all the banks say that, no, this is my data and I'm not going to share with anyone else, then this sharing of a same ATM machine is not possible, right? Similarly, the question today is going to happen, and this hopefully would happen because of the legislation is coming up, that every provider would be sharing their data in a common platform. As a customer or as a patient, I would have access to all of my data, and I can decide whom I want to share the data with. So suppose, let's say I go to a hospital or to a individual doctor, then I decide that, okay, I want to share this data, my data, with my doctor for a certain period of time. But my data is not only one data for an organization. Today, what happens is that if I go to Artemis Hospital, I can see my all data for Artemis Hospital. But it is not that I only would go to Artemis Hospital. If I fall sick, I was in Mumbai, I was in Hinduja Hospital, then what happened between Hinduja and Artemis? There's nothing, right? There's no exchange. This is going to change the process. So this is one of the example where I think is very relevant today, where a regulation is probably going to change the way the healthcare is being practiced in the country. This is one of the huge project, which is like the way the banking financial sector has explained the project when they worked on the data exchange, and this was probably 30, 40 years back. We are much late in this case, but today this is not true for a lot of Western countries. Other than a couple of smaller Western countries, nobody has this facility available today. But this is one example where I think that regulations is going to create a very important and positive change in our society. If we are having this webinar maybe after 1 year, I hope that we'll be discussing about the success of the project, and all of us would have a number through which we could able to access our data and share our data with someone else. Now on the other side of it, now India, we all know that the challenges are most of the time the regulations were meant for something else, not meant for customer service. That is something I am sure if we ask these questions to anybody, that is there any regulation you can name that which was intended to look at the customer experience of service? I don't think that anybody can even name one regulation where the intention of the regulation was to giving a better customer experience. A lot of cases we have found that these regulations actually has created played a spoil sport role, and then most of the time because of the regulatory requirement, the customer service aspects being compromised, right? There are some good part of it. There is a reason for all the regulations, why this regulation was brought, but I think it's a very important component of the customer service that got missed in most of the time in the legislators' mind, because they may have other important things to address. Now here, going forward, I would urge, request, plead that can we add these customer service aspects also when you are looking at any regulations, right? So similarly in hospital, you will find out, and it's very talked about subject. Generally, the hospital has to go with a huge list of regulations. Similarly, if in my experience of a startup company, everybody said that okay, this starting a company nowadays is a one-day job, and then when you start working on this, then you find out that what is the 1 day and how many hours in a day you require to make it 1 day, right? So initially also I was very happy when I opened my company and I said, oh, my job is done. It was so easy, right? But then when I've started working on this, then I understand that, how many hours of my time goes in managing a lot of stuff, which is nothing to do with customers, and which I never thought in my corporate life that is something that I have to do. So similarly, there are a lot of regulatory constraints, if I may use the word, is holding companies back to provide the better customer services. And I think this is something where we need to take it up with the legislatures, and I don't know what is the way to do it. Probably we'll talk about in webinar. We use social media as a platform to make others aware of how this needs to be done. Among us, if there's an influencer has got 1 million followers, if we can tell him that, okay, can you please put this in your tweet or in your any YouTube post, probably that would get a larger impact. But I think the time has come for us to include this component in the legislative changes, and there are too many changes are also coming up, which is forward looking, but changes to make a customer happy, I doubt. So this is going to come, but this NHDB or National Healthcare Database or making this health card project is a very positive change, which I think is going to change the way the healthcare is being practiced in the country.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Dey. So let's see what future holds and what will happen in the next 1 year. The success, I think you're right. We might be discussing about it a year down the line. So Mr. Anil, the same question to you, especially given that even yours is a highly regulated industry. So these regulations pose a challenge in providing exceptional customer experience, or rather is it a good thing?
So very pertinent question in today's time when we are grappling with a lot of regulatory changes, particularly in the financial markets. We have seen in the past few years a lot of changes, particularly with the thrust of the government to come out of those old archaic laws which were part of the British system. I think most of them have been put under the hammer and they are gone now. But still, since we are more aligned on the financial side towards the Western world, the kind of activity and the products that are in the Western world. So the answer to your question is yes and no both. So I deliberately left out the medical part, which I was thinking to quote for the superior authority of Partha sir. So I will not quote that. So I'll give you 2 positive examples and 2 negative examples of how regulatory hindrances, you can say, or regulatory framework comes in the path of a superior customer experience. How you define superior customer experience is something different. So we'll just do a plain meaning of that. So you have speed limit on cars in India, right? So is it good or bad? So I think it is good, because so there are two reasons. One is that people don't know how to drive, and there are no roads to drive, no proper roads rather, right? But still, if you put a speed limit of, you don't put any speed limit like in Germany, I think things will be very, very messy in India, right? So there, I think the regulatory part, okay, you can drive only up to 180, or maybe on specific roads there are signs. I don't know who checks the signs, but there are signs, 90, 120, they say. So I think it is good to have some kind of a check. The second example, which gives utmost delight to people, though I don't do that, is that you are not served liquor on domestic flights, right? So the apparent reason maybe is that people will start enjoying it and they will not get off the flight because they're getting free booze on the flight. The same guys, when they fly international, so they say that we are deprived of the ultimate customer experience, which you can have on the flight. You're bored, you can't look at the phone, no WhatsApp is working, no Facebook, so you're cut off from social network. You can't talk to your family. So what to do? We have to drink. So, but you're not allowed to drink. Okay, these are two positive things which regulatory framework hampers you to enjoy. On the positive side, there is a regulatory angle in the financial world. So, for example, there are a lot of things which the regulator has disallowed people to do because there is inherent conflict of interest. So, for example, a wealth management guy is not recommended to be doing broking, because if he's also doing broking, then there is inherent conflict of interest that he will be interested in churning the portfolio of the investor, and at the end of the day, what will happen? He would have earned a lot of brokerage, and the customer would have been left with zero principal in his account. So these kind of frameworks are very, very important. So even banks, I have worked in ICICI Bank, so RBI is very, very strict with respect to what a bank can do, what a bank cannot do. Though if a bank, for example, if you're going to a bank, you ideally want bank to do everything for you, all the finances, all the financial part. But there are a lot of things which banks are not allowed to do. So the regulatory framework takes care of the fact that the investor's interest is taken care of, right? And he does not end up losing all his money. So similarly, SEBI, which is the financial regulator in India, they have also lot of you can say circulars on protecting the interest through NSE, through BSE, through commodity markets, through currency markets. So they're continuously on the job how to improve the safety of the end investors. So I think the regulatory framework helps a lot in these kind of situations where there is possibility that people will take away all your money and you're left actually with nothing. And number two, which is very critical in today's world, is that the framework for regarding the data, how your data is used. So I, as a customer, would like to give access to my all private data to somebody, say Amazon or say Google, so that I don't have to do anything. I just speak and they do it for me. So your your Amazon, this Echo device and all these devices, Alexa, for example. So government and the regulatory framework puts restrictions on the data, how that is used and how that is stored, whether it is stored in the Indian borders, within Indian borders, or what kind of safety regulation have to be followed. Because end of the day, it is in customer's delight that he gives full access to his data, but it can also be misused by somebody. The intention may be the right of the companies, but there are so many layers within the company, so many departments. Then they also share data with their vendors who may not be so forthright and honest and committed. The integrity issues have to be there in case you spread the data very thin among large number of vendors just to earn ad revenues. It has happened in case of Facebook. The data has been hacked for so many. So data privacy, I think, data privacy and financial world, I think these are two areas where I think regulatory framework has to be considered, has to be put into practice. Regarding other things which don't harm anybody, I think the sacrifice has to be made, and it is in the best wisdom of the governments and those who make the rules, whether they want people to have their ultimate experience in the skies or on the wheels.
Sujata, if you may allow, I would love to hear the example of healthcare from Anil. Please go ahead.
Please, Mr. Anil, for Mr. Partha's, delight.
I'll just give one example.
Sure.
So a few years back, I had to visit a hospital for some surgery. So I was pretty sure that I have insurance policies and I'll be covered with that. So there was difference in the rate of operation if you have a policy, if you don't have a policy. If you have a policy, the rate is higher. If you don't have a policy, the rate is lower. So regulation in such, I had a policy, so I didn't care actually, honestly. I just told him that I have a policy whether you charge 50,000 bucks extra. But on the other side, if somebody who doesn't have a policy, the charges were actually, so there was it's a bias basically. It's a bias that if the charges you take for an insurance policy guy will be it's called anchoring bias. So the price will be very near to that. It will be somewhere lower, maybe 20, 30,000 below. So independently, that price is not there, I think, for the surgery. It is just correlated with what they are charging and what has been approved by the insurance policies. So I think regulatory framework also works in such cases where there is chance. It may not happen everywhere, but there is chance. And when you are going to a hospital, you feel that you are trying to be in good hands and you're already very flustered in the mind. People are not in a happy state of mind while going to a hospital. So troubling people there, I think regulations are very critical, I think, in those places.
No, that's correct. And this is a very common thing that we keep hearing. If you want a administrative view could be completely different. So let me share the contra view as well. The contra view, we have several examples where a patient would come and say that, okay, I will be, and the charges varies primarily because of the room rent and the material being used. Let's for eye surgery, what is the lens is being used, that actually creates the problem. And the same charges, like let's say a patient is being admitted in a single room, double room, deluxe room, semi-deluxe room, presidential, whatever you call. And unfortunate things, and it happens mostly in India. I have not seen any other Western countries, like the charges varies depending on the room rent. So suppose if you got a higher room category, only is not that the patient is paying the room rent high. So room rent high is not much because the room rent is, let's say, between 6,000 to 20,000. So the difference is 16, 17,000. Why I'm telling it is not high? Because the other cost will be 50% higher in every category once you go, or 25% higher or 20% higher, depending on, and there is no regulations as such over there.
Right.
But the other part of the contrast story from the hospital is the hospital would say that, okay, patient has come and patient didn't knew that they themselves has been insured, and then said that, okay, get me into the lowest category possible and everything. And tomorrow when they notify somebody in the family, like, that happens for the parents because there are brothers and sisters, and then they don't know that somebody else has got a office insurance where the parents are covered. And then suddenly they will come and say that, okay, now do one thing. You take me to the higher category of the room, and then whatever you want to charge, you don't care.
It happens. That is part of customer psychology.
Correct. So you are absolutely correct here. And we believe, as being a healthcare professional, we believe that this pricing has to be transparent, right? This
absolutely yes.
will kill this bias, right? And and there is no harm. You tell me that you are charging me. If I purchase a car, the cars are available, so-called a nano at 1 lakh to how many crores, right? So then that's what I purchase, right? So so and I don't complain, right? That what I'm purchasing. So I know that what I'm purchasing and I'm paying for the value, right?
So the important word you said was transparency.
Transparency. It needs to be completely transparent, and it needs to be understood by the consumer. You know, the problem in this value selling is that there are often this value has not been, translated in customer experience or consumer experience. Let's say if I am a person, I'm a consumer, at the same time I'm a service provider. So there are two views. As a service provider, when I am delivering a service, I feel that, okay, I have created so many things around this, that's why I'm charging more, and the person should be happy. But the question is whether the person sees value in those services. If the value is not being experienced by them, doesn't matter whatever the time, energy, effort we have put to create those excellent features around it. So very important is, as you rightly said, as a consumer of healthcare services, and I take it as a consumer voice, right? As a consumer of the healthcare services, absolutely the pricing has to be completely transparent. And the same things can be sold at 10 different prices. Doesn't matter, because we will understand. But why this prices is going up? and whether I see value in that additional component and I am willing to pay, that needs to be explained. I think that is something where we are missing, and if some regulatory framework can be brought in, I think that
You're
would
right.
be a great thing for the customers. Yeah.
You're right.
Great. So two very important things that came out even of this, mini debate and rather even justification of services is that, yes, there is a transparency which is absolutely paramount and essential. Already several industries are boasting about being transparent in the way they are, servicing the customers. And then there are industries which would now have to cater to this demand of the customers. And the second point which Mr. Anil very rightly touched upon was about data privacy. So regulations around data privacy is something which is paramount, even if, data privacy related regulations, it's good to have them, even if they impose a slight, discomfort or might take away a little bit from the customer experience. That is still an essential point. And thus, so many organizations are actually working, in fact, have their IT teams pay more focus on the kind of assessments that they get done, especially when it comes to the customer data and getting the security assessments done around it. So those are some of the things that every organization needs to be, cognizant about. So I'll move to the next question. And my next question is for Mr. Partha. Mr. Partha, you're catering to healthcare segment. Thus, the impact of solutions or services is paramount. What are some of the differentiators that you intend to bring in for the customers?
Yeah. So there are, again, as I was telling you, the two kinds of customer that we serve. One, when we put up a hospital administrator hat, then we serve the consumers. And then second time, when we put up a, let's say, a technology company's hat, then we are serving the B2B customer, the hospitals, then hospital becomes our customer. Now, in this case, let's look at a couple of examples where we are trying to bring a new dimension in the service delivery of it. So be it that we are selling something to a customer where this becomes a B2B2C, because at the end, whatever the B2B selling is happening, that B2C component is very important. At the end, my customer need to satisfy his customer, and a lot of times that's a mistake that we do, is that we try to only look at that, how I'm going to cater to my customer need. But if it is a B2B customer, it's very important, if that particular topic is not some way rather improvising his service element to his customer, that B2C element, then it will not have a very long-term value, right? So one example, and I work for this company called PaaS Digital Enablement Platform, etc., where we're trying to address a very specific problem, and we thought it is a very unique one. During this COVID, our visit to the hospital got restricted. Like even for availing medical services, all of us have decided that, okay, if it is not very life-threatening, better they don't go to the healthcare providers, because your chances of getting any infection from there is higher compared to if you are staying home and be safe, right? Similarly, there is a hospital patient's visitor component. Means is that somebody is staying in the hospital in our country and society, we would love to go and see our near or dear ones when they are there in the hospital. What happened is, in this time, that visit to the hospital also become restricted, and it's rightly so, because you should not go to the hospital when you are not sick and you want to visit someone else. But the challenge is, if someone else is not well and you are not able to see him at that point of time, you feel guilty. It's not like a Western world where you only make a phone call and say that, okay, once you are back at home and I'll see you, right? Our mindsets are not like that, right? And it happened, and I keep giving this example. My brother got a cardiac problem. He unfortunately has to undergo cath lab procedures, and then some stent has to be inserted. This happened in Kolkata during this lockdown time. I was in Delhi. The flight was not going there. I could not go. Now the question is, even if I could not go, and for around a day's time, he was not in a position to handle his own phone because he was sick, right? And then the hospital was having some other COVID patient in a different ward, and they said that nobody can enter the hospital. So now we are completely out of touch. And even I knew some of the people in the hospital because of my connections. Irrespective of that, I could not able to find a direct connect that what is happening with my brother. So the question is that, is there any way, can we have a mechanisms where a e-visit or a virtual visit could be enabled? Like today, we could able to still do the webinar, probably sometime I feel in a little better manner compared to what we used to do in a physical platform, right? Now,
Right.
that's the where we came up with this concept of a e-visits, like how we can enable a customer or a patient relatives, their friends and families, to see the patients without visiting them physically, right? So in COVID situation, it's very important. We have to restrict number of people visiting, but at the same time, we have to enable seeing that person. There can be two situations when the person is in a position and he can make a call or he can make a video call, right? So that's the time the person is kind of well, and that is the time you are not missing the person's health information. You are missing the person's health information when he is not well. He may be in ICU or in ward or in a distress situations, but the patients are not being allowed and they are not able to see him. So this e-visits enables a electronic or a virtual visits, where a nurse or someone can carry a tab or a phone, and then the patients can talk to them. It's a much more than a regular WhatsApp call, where this could be structured visit. And then not only that patient visits related to the visiting the patient, it is also knowing the health condition from the care provider. Like if I go to a hospital to see someone, I will not only go and meet my brother over there. I will go and ask the doctor. I will go and ask the nurses how he is doing, how many times he has eaten, has he gone to the toilet, could able to pass the urine appropriately. There are 10 other very important pertinent questions which I may not ask my brother because he may not be in the right conditions to answer it, right? So these whole things that we are putting up in a manner that this would become, this will enable anyone to see the patients in a virtual environment in a hospital. So that we feel is a unique kind of a services, and where the customer experience will be completely different. And probably we have tried to look at various visit management, etc. At least with our ability of Google search, we could not find that anyone exists as of now. There are some point application hospital guys have made themselves because they had to use something, because otherwise how they will communicate with the patient relatives. But there is no structured way of scheduling e-visits and making e-visits to a patient. We hope in months time this would be up and live, and then anyone would like to see a customer, they can download a mobile app. If the hospital allows that services, then they should be able to see the patient in an electronic manner. Okay, we hope that that will bring some gap, and that will reduce the number of visits to the hospital, which is more important. So more visitors visiting the hospital, they are in a higher chance of getting the infections, and this COVID is going to stay, right? The COVID is not going to go away. So we have to find the mechanisms to stay together, right? So avoiding visiting hospital could be one important things to do in our life. The other part, what we are also working with, is something to do with what we call the tele-reporting, where the radiologists are sitting in a centralized locations, and where the images are coming to the radiologist and the reports are all being done there. So this is not a new subject, it's a 20-year-old topic. As India is a teleradiology hub, we do a lot of work from Western world, etc. But till today, irrespective of this 20 years old operations, we found out there is a major gap today. Most of the reports are still happening in the center, where the doctors are not touching the patient, not seeing the patient. They're only looking at the image, looking at the information, and then reporting for the patients. And we wanted to automate this process as much as possible, and we wanted to make the radiologists more productive. And we feel if we do that, then radiologists could be able to do more reports in the same time. So today, let's say radiologist is doing CT scan report in, let's say 1 hour 10 CT report, they should be able to do 1 hour 20 CT report, because of the technology enablement that we bring over here. At the end of this whole story, the patients would get benefited because they will get a faster report for the test that they're doing. What has happened for pathology today, you will see in pathology a lot of times home collection is a choice, right? Which was not the situation 20 years back, right? That is the time when you used to find out that where should I go, what I do the test, etc. Today you make a phone call, somebody would come and then get this sample from you, and then there is no second visit, because people would be downloading the report either from the mobile app or the portal, or they'll get a WhatsApp report, right? So typically you would not go and collect the physical report over there. The similar thing we're trying to repeat completely for radiology services, that if you are availing radiology services, exactly what happened in pathology, probably pathology was ahead of radiology. In radiology also, we should be able to create the same things, where physical going to the hospital would be there, because the machines are much higher, much bigger in size. The CT scan MRI machine you can't install anywhere else. But after that, there is nothing. So the test results, etc., all are being automated, being done by radiologists much faster time and being available to the patient and their fingertips. Right. So this is the two examples I thought I will share, more to a B2B, but at the day end, this is going to impact the consumer, and hopefully they will have a better experience going forward. Technology has played actually a very important and significant role over here. And Sujata, I would request, like as an organization, you guys need to work on this space with more people to make them aware of the data security and the privacy aspect. And there are times when we don't understand the difference between security and the privacy. So security, privacy, and confidentiality, these three things has to be understood by all of us and has to be practiced by us. As a professional, all of us are responsible for this, right? We cannot give it to the regulator and blame it to the government. That's the easiest things to do, but that's not going to solve the problem. We have to practice it ourselves. And when we are talking about use of emerging technology, we are talking about use of data. Otherwise, the AI ML will not work. There is no data, nothing will work. But as Anil rightly pointed out, that we have to find out a fine balance there. We need to collect and collect data for my AI ML model to work. But how do I ensure during this process I am not compromising at all with this data security, privacy, and the confidentiality aspect? And here I believe there's a good amount of I don't know whether I should say that learning required. It's not only about awareness, it is more than awareness. It's a learning required by many organizations, both from the data collecting organization like the hospital in that case, and also data used organizations like the organization like us who are working on the AI ML model, to ensure that this is not being compromised at all. This is a very important element. Probably in today's topic, it is not included. We are talking about a customer service, but in the name of customer service, this is something we cannot compromise. And later on, this customer service will not work if any customer get to know that these guys are collecting data which could be misused by any purpose, irrespective of the customer service they experience. They would not give their consent, and it is going to happen. It is going to happen soon. The way the data exploration is happening. Now, personally, I am not very fond of downloading mobile apps, because every time I go and download, they said, I want to read your SMS, I want to read your photographs. I don't know what they do with my photographs. I could not find a lot of apps. They said, I said, what you will do with my photographs? What informations are kept over there? Why? I said, no, I want to read your photographs as well. So we need to be very cognizant about this fact, how we are working on.
Yeah, very important points, Mr. Partha, that you've touched. Yes, firstly, I'll go to your first point, right now. One is that this pandemic has actually pushed organizations to think more innovatively, to actually innovate in the true sense of the term, and not just try to push whatever was their previous agenda, and think about the customer. So actually try to empathize, look at what are the customer problems, and accordingly innovate and provide solutions for that. So that's an important factor that has happened. Secondly, yes, when it comes to digital transformation, so organizations have embarked upon the journey of their digital transformation, but organizations have to understand that don't go digital or don't use technology just for the sake of it. Rather, always get a thorough assessment done. First, understand where do you stand currently, and then where do you wish to go, your as-is and your to-be. So for that, get thorough assessments done, accordingly map your digital transformation strategy for years to come. So that is how organizations should go about it. And finally, the very important factor that you touched upon, Mr. Partha, yes, when you're talking about customer experience, your employees are the ones, your users, internal users are the ones who will be providing that exceptional customer experience. So are they aware about data privacy, security, and confidentiality norms, the importance, and how aware are they about how should they deal with all of these aspects? Thus, always organizations should think about having a good comprehensive user awareness framework, getting these interventions rolled out internally, and accordingly take it forward. Like we've worked with multiple organizations on this front, and it's nice and very refreshing to see how mature and how for progressive looking the organizations are when they are ready to admit that our employees at times do not understand the nitty-gritties of it, and we are willing to make an investment on this front to get them trained and to make them aware about these security issues. So thank you, Mr. Parna. I'll move to my next question, and my next question is for Mr. Anil. Mr. Anil, you are dealing with domestic as well as international customers. So what are some of the differences that you witness in the expectations of these geographically diverse customers? Mr. Anil, did we lose connectivity with you? Yeah, we are here.
No, yeah, I'm here. So the basic products that we offer to our customers, be it domestic, be it international, are the same. But yes, you're right. The expectations of the customers on the Indian side and on the international side are a bit different. So I'll just point out a few expectations of the international customers where they are more focused vis-a-vis the Indian counterparts. So the international investors and customers are very process driven. So they are highly process focused. They want all their processes to be very well documented, to be shared with them, to be explained to them. So they put a lot of onus and focus of their first engagements with us regarding how will the whole thing happen, what are the steps included. So they will go to the last detailing point, that when will it happen, who is the first person responsible, what are the timelines for that, what is the next step, what is the preceding step, what will happen, what is the flow of the process. So they're very they're very meticulous with respect to the process, and they are also very risk averse in the sense that they don't take chances on risk. So they want to be very sure with respect to the regulations that are in current in force in India. They don't want to be on the wrong side of law generally, and they want to be seen as very compliant, and they follow processes which are very compliant, and they put a lot of onus on being right. Visual processes and the transactions that happen. They are also very much focused on technology. They want the technology to be the best, and any changes which is required at our end, they want us to make it happen. So technology, compliance, focus on service, and responsiveness is another thing. If they send a mail regarding any complaint, any query, they want us to be very responsive in the sense that they don't like procrastination. Nobody is following up on their mail, nobody is replying, nobody is responding. So, and to avoid that, they want to have some kind of a technological interface with the company, a CRM kind of a thing, where they are able to put their queries, they get a number, they see when they have raised the query, when it was resolved. So, and I think last, I think on their priority list is the pricing. So they will obviously ask us to give the best rates. But what I have personally seen with respect to the discussions, that they are more concerned about the ecosystem where they are going to operate in, and what we are offering to them as services, as a bundle service. So they don't see price in a silo, that okay, maybe our company is offering them something at a lower rate and we should go with them. They will check us maybe with others and see whether we are in the broad range of price which are being quoted in the market. But they will more see what are the processes that we follow, how organized we are, what are the services we are offering, what is the technology level that we are operating at. All those things are of more concern to them than the Indian counterparts. Coming to the Indian clients, they still, though things are changing and they are changing at a pretty fast pace, but I think it is still a value-based approach. They will always appoint a vendor where they see value. So value now has changed from a purely price point kind of a thing to what other services I'm getting, but still price is very heavy on the minds. They want a personal touch with the management, so that in case of anything goes wrong, they can call the top management. They feel very comfortable with that, because I think Indians are like relationship driven. So people like to be knowing the right guy who will get the things done with them. Then service levels have to be very, very good in terms of clients in India. They want multiple things to be factored into the price that we're quoting to them. So they will try to bargain very hard on the pricing part, that you have to be not at par with the market, you have to be the best in the market. Like for them, which have to be the lowest actually. So these are some of the differences in expectations. But yes, things are changing. there's a new set of entrepreneurs who's coming, maybe the second generation of the new ones, who are more you can say they are more value based. If we can use in today's context, value based in the sense that they want their end clients, as Partha sir said, that they want their end clients experience to be very good. So they always talk to us in terms of what technology we will offer to them as a vendor, because we are into B2B. And then when they go from B2B to B2C, the services which we are offering to them, whether it will be helpful for them in giving the best services to their B2C client. So the new crop is coming up, and they are actually catching up very fast with their Western counterparts, and they are actually seeking higher levels of service, responsiveness, technology, social media presence, all these data privacy things. They are taking much more care than their maybe earlier generation or the other set of entrepreneurs which we used to traditionally deal with. So things are changing, and this is the main set of difference. And but they are becoming more and more demanding. And we were discussing B2B. I think B2B clients are more demanding than B2C. That is a given thing in the market. B2B, whether they give the best service to their end clients or not, but they want the best for them. They want the best services at the best prices. So that is the glitch there, the clincher.
Okay, great. So ultimately, the main difference does arise that the domestic customers are very cost conscious
Yes.
versus their international counterparts who would be more process driven, who would have a focus on what is the kind of technology that the company has deployed to service them better. Thus,
Right.
organizations should focus on building their SOPs, that is their structured operating procedures, have them in place, because that helps you internally and externally. It helps you internally because the training time that is spent on your internal employees, that can be reduced. It's one way of doing a certain work, and it is uniform across the organization, thus impacting the ultimate customer experience that you provide. And it gives the comfort level to your customers that yes, you are a process oriented organization, and you would certainly be investing upon the best of the technologies that are available, and so that even data privacy, data security, these concerns can be taken into picture. Other factor which both of our speakers at different points have pointed out is the end customers experience. So many times internally when we are talking about our employees, we are talking about data security, data privacy awareness sessions. We are talking about getting them trained on the best of the technologies, but behavioral aspects become as important, because your internal employees should be the brand ambassadors when they are dealing with any end customer, or for that matter even a vendor. So externally, anyone from your organization is your brand ambassador. So getting them trained on behavioral aspects also becomes imperative. So thank you to both the speakers. I'll move to my last question of this structured panel discussion that we thought before we move to our Q&A session. And this last question is common to both the panelists. So we could start with Mr. Anil and then move to Mr. Partha this time. Let's change the sequence.
Yes,
so
sir.
Mr. Anil, embracing new technologies early is crucial to stay ahead of the competition and deliver on customer expectations. So what are your thoughts on organizations going digital?
So the underlying message in today's world is that either you change and remain relevant, or the market will make you irrelevant very fast. You must have seen this applying to a lot of tech companies, but this also applies to a lot of old traditional businesses, even big banks. So you have now new NBFCs, the non-banking financial companies, promising personal loan in 8 minutes, 5 minutes, something like that. I heard some crazy number, five minutes. So in 5 minutes, how is it possible to give a personal loan in 5 minutes? Just think backwards. A customer walks into a branch, maybe or online, and he applies to on the online portal, I want a personal loan of 5 lakh rupees. So you have to go back and check whether the person will be able to repay the loan. Number two, whether he will be able to service the loan, and what has been his history in similar kind of a role, and whether he has taken other loans, where he stays, what is income levels, what is the education levels. So you have a window of 3-4 minutes to check. So is it humanly possible for us, anybody in the branch, to go through multiple websites, or even we do a basic VLOOKUP on some Excel sheets? First of all, you don't have data for anybody who's just coming in, walking into the branch. So you have to be tech savvy. There has to be some application, there has to be a database interface, which the employee will just feed in maybe the PAN number or maybe the other number, and they will do a backward search in simple. First of all, the score that will give you the basic idea whether the guy has been repaying old personal loans, old home loans, credit cards, whether they are in default. It's a score on the CIBIL, and what is his current, if he is an existing customer, what is his salary levels, is he getting salary, is he employed or not. And then you can ask for his basic detail, whether he's educated, what kind of education he has got, what kind of employment he has net. So all this has to be done in 5 minutes. So you have to have a basic or advanced version of some tech support to do all this in 5 minutes. This was not possible, I think, 5 years down the line, because you didn't have a CIBIL connecting API which will give you the number. It took 15 minutes for the CIBIL process to run. The pages to fill for a CIBIL query where itself, it took, I think, 10 minutes to fill the name, the PAN card, the address. It has to match everything. It had to be perfect. Then only you could get a score. And then there was nobody to interpret whether it is a good score or not. For example, if you have not taken any loan in life, the CIBIL score will be invariably low. You will say, I have not taken the loan, how can my score be low? Because then they don't know whether you will repay or not. So repayment is more critical for a loan to give you a higher CIBIL score. That is a general query that people. That is because if you have taken a loan and repaid it back, that is given a higher score than not taking a loan at all. Responsiveness of the teams to queries, I think that is very well explained by way of a good CRM. That if you are growing and you have B2B customers or having B2C customers who know that you are the vendor, you have to provide a technological support system where the B2B guy, the vendor, and his clients can log in and see and complain, ask queries. So it is not humanly possible for companies today to open their own BPOs. And if you outsource the BPO activity, then you have the cost goes so high, and you are reliant on an outside vendor again. Then you can't increase the service levels, you can't increase the TAT, the costing will go up. You have no control basically on that. So technology has become imperative in terms of service offering. It can also, if you are in designing, for example, you can have software where you can design new things. So you can take the customer preferences into mind while designing the products. Maybe 2 decades ago, say Bajaj was only making, say, Bajaj Chetak. They never thought about making anything else because Bajaj Chetak had a waiting list of 5-6 years. So they were just worried, how do we make a Bajaj Chetak and give it to the line, which is like there. Now they are thinking that you don't give a normal motorcycle to a guy who wants to trek from, say, Chandigarh to Manali. So for that, companies now come with a different kind of a motorcycle. So this is the kind of customization which has happened because of all these things which have happened on the social network. The people actually, the feedback given by customers can be pulled in very fast by the customers. So if I have seen in the past 1 year, a lot of surveys coming in my WhatsApp groups. So people and the businesses, they actually do customer service, fast customer service, so that they get a broad idea what kind of customer preferences are currently working the market, so that they can design their products accordingly. So this was inconceivable, I think, say 10 years back. You didn't have a proper net connection, so who will send? So WhatsApp, I think, has played a very important part. Similarly, other apps where people can engage with each other. So branding is critical. So tech is the way to go. If anybody tells me that there is, and I think the pandemic has proven it beyond doubt that tech is the only way to go. So in my kids' school, they used to call us on Saturdays, Sundays, and give us long lectures about detoxification and having no digital display days for days together. So they used to say, sir, please ensure that you plus your wife plus then only the kids will do a no digital day, no screen time day for the full day. So I think in 6 months, the whole concept has fallen on our head totally. I had to get 2 laptops for my kid, one for the online class, one for the homework is coming on the other laptop. So this is the kind of, and I think once the kid is actually, she is a full day only rubbing her eyes, because she's on the screen full day now. Because once her classes for 4 or 5 hours go away, then you have home assignments, and you have all these discussions, then examinations, everything is on phone. So this is tech. So schools also struggle that how to do it. So first of all, they started with Zoom, then Google Meet, then Microsoft Team, then this team and that team. Eventually, I think after this pandemic goes, maybe schools may devise something of their own so that they are more secure. The kids, because if you are on YouTube or you are on Zoom, for example, and all the kids starting from day 1 to day, say class 5th, are studying on something, the data of the kid, that he is a mediocre kid, is a dumb kid, or a smart kid, will be on the net, I think, before he even has graduated. That is the kind of data privacy leakage is happening. So I don't think schools will also become very proactive eventually to protect the data of kids, and particularly kids on web has become a very uh, dangerous subject. So so tech makes you basically, as a company, it enables you to offer services across silos. Earlier you used to have one product companies, and offering only a particular thing in the market. Now customers are not going and flocking to those companies. They want the companies to give everything under one roof, so that they can have, that's basically called value added services. So for us also, the company I work in currently, we also have competitors in the market who are offering a single product thing. But we have gone ahead and done a lot of consolidation and offering services on the entire value chain for the customer. So when a customer comes to our platform, we try to offer him everything under one roof, so that he doesn't have to deal with 10 different vendors. And we are very highly regulated. So we have license for each of the thing we do. So all these things will help companies like us to mature, and going forward with new technology, we'll be able to offer a very high level of experience to our end clients, and they'll feel the difference. And maybe by the time the branding will also be done, maybe with your help. So technology is like a given thing. The only thing is one has to put the right resource, and the thinking has to be right. The vision has to be correct.
Great. So, Mr. Anil, first of all, on YouTube, you mentioned it live that, with our help, you will go ahead with the branding of your organization. So I'm going to hold you responsible for it.
No issue, no issue. You can edit this part.
No. Rather, it's very important for my customer experience that I wish to provide.
Sure.
So jokes apart, a couple of important points that you've really touched upon. One is that, with the use of technology, everything is going agile. For that matter, even, you're trying to collect real time customer data and the pulse of the customers by using, very short and very quick surveys that are being rolled out, and on devices and on mediums wherein the customer feels comfortable in quickly sharing a feedback about what is happening. So that's a very important thing wherein technology is playing a very crucial role. Secondly, yes, maybe for organizations that are providing multiple services, the integration of services with the use of technology, with the help of technology, will go a long way. So these are some of the very important factors that you have touched upon. Mr. Partha, the same question to you. Embracing new technologies early is crucial to stay ahead of the competition and to deliver on customer expectations. So what are your thoughts on the organizations now going digital?
Absolutely, and I don't think it's not only because of ahead of the competition. It is important for your survival. Now, digital is not add-on. Digital is not value added. Digital is part of your life. If you are not embracing digital, then you are not going to sustain. Right. So that's the way the digital has now come. But here, very important is to understand that what we are digitizing and what is the impact of digitizations is on the end consumers, right? So in the name of digitization, it's not that everything has to be digital. We have to be very wise because we have a X amount of resources, and the budget has to be allocated to the digital project so that the ROI is being realized. There are a lot of times I have seen the failure of the digital project because the project itself was never meant for digitization, right? So in our consulting role, when I consult with some of the client on the digital, the first thing first starts is that, okay, what are the things you are going to digitize? Look at the impact, how it is going to help. Either it is helping you to be on the business, because there are certain things, if you are not digitizing, you will be out of the business. So, and there are certain things you will be doing to be ahead of the competition. So it's very important to understand that list and then start on the digitization project. And also very important for the organization to make a roadmap for digitization, right? So because a lot of times it happens from the C function perspective, they must have heard from someone else, like, the digitization has to be there. So without understanding, call the IT guys and I said that I want everything digitized. Then the message goes in the wrong direction and the ROI never get realized because of those kind of a direction. So it's very important for us to understand. Second thing is that also is important to understand and choose the right technology for digitization. Digitization is a large subject, right? So what will digitize, how will digitize, what kind of a newer technology element that is available today will pick and choose. That's very important. And sometimes choice of the technology and some technology, choosing the technology much ahead of time is also not appreciated. You also try to find out that which is actually going to realize the value. That technology selection process is also very important over here. So for organization, digitization is a part of life. It is not something additional element that they are doing it. How the impact of the digitizations would be checked. That's also very important. So you have digitized a project. Then what happened? So digitization is not ends once your first part is over. Digitization actually starts from there. Please go and check what was the intentions of the project, why you wanted that particular project to run, right? So today's world, if you look at, and if I go back to my earlier example, most of the hospitals have started having their mobile apps, right? And in the mobile apps now, the client expectation is that I should be able to see my details. I should be able to make an appointment. I should be able to make the payment for the consultation before I go, so that there is no queue that I am there. If there is a change of the appointment, I would expect that information to come to us and not to realize going to the hospital and somebody would say that the doctor is in OT, right? And we have had several times examples, the doctor who never visited OT in last 30 years, they have been also told they're in OT because everybody feels that doctors are very safe inside the OT, right? So we have to be practical and see that how this digitization is impacting the customer. And here is one important element, that this kind of a digitization also creates expectation of the customer. So if you are giving a mobile app and you have made an appointment and then there is the option to reschedule the appointment, it is expected that if there is a reschedule, either from the customer side or from the hospital side, it should work. It cannot be that only one part is working and you have not informed the customer. So if there is any pricing element, make that transparent. Make it transparent to the customer when he is booking the services, right? And these are the expectation elements. A lot of times when we look at it, that we don't look at this expectation element that clearly. We just make that thing digitized, and then we found out during the execution of the process that then the customers are not using it. The adoption is very poor, right? Because of what has been expected out of it, the system is not delivering that value. And the adoptions internally by internal players are also very important, because you will find out there are a lot many hospitals, they have implemented a lot of systems, but if you go and really see what is happening over there, then still you will find out the adoption level is very poor. So the digitizations, adoptions of the digitizations by the various internal customers are also very important. And also, I would always suggest that goes in a small way, but whatever you are planning for digitization, ensure 100% adoption of the thing. Rather than coming up with 30 mobile apps, please launch one mobile app and ensure that all functionality of the mobile app, what you thought that that's being used. Don't launch 10 mobile apps at a point of time, right? Choice of the technology wise, everybody understand the power of AI. AI is understood nowadays, right? Google Map, probably one of the biggest example is that today, even if I go to office and I know that I have been there so many times, I still try and find out that which road has probably more traffic today and can I avoid the congestion. It's not that I don't know the routes, but I don't know the traffic. Google knows the traffic, right? That is an added advantage to Google. With my 20 years experience of driving in Delhi, I cannot beat Google. It is as simple as that, right? So here we have to accept the impact of technology and then use that impact of technology in our life, and the similar thing to be replicated for our customers in healthcare. And there are enough examples in healthcare that we have seen. So ample amount of mobile apps that we have seen. Automation of workflows, that's another one what we are looking at. to have a great impact in the life of the hospitals. So robotic process automation, what we call, is generally not being practiced in the hospital at all. People all feel that every time we'll do unique. It's not like that. Most of the time the same processes are being followed. So can we automate those processes using technology? And digitizations would bring a lot of value at the end of it. Like your discharge process automation, right? Discharge is something everybody knows is a problem, and everybody live with that problem. So I feel ashamed being a healthcare IT professional that still today we could not solve this problem. Right? So here it's very important that we pick up those kind of problem which is bothering more people, majority of the people, and how we are going to solve that particular problem using digitization. The last point I want to make is that the organizational commitment to digitization. Right? So it is not that it's a fancy things to have digitization. A lot of time it happens that people do digitize because they want to do digitization. What is the organization commitment? What is the support of the organization to this digital guy? Right. So it's a, and digitization, a lot of time people feel that, okay, it is about a digital marketing. Right. So I have had this discussion several times. People, oh, we have got a lot of digitization. So what do you do in digitization? We have digital marketing. We're in all Facebook and Instagram and God knows what else in the world. Right. A lot of people even don't understand how these various channel impacts. There are a lot of customers, they would never get anything from the Facebook or Instagram because sometimes they feel that it's very important for us to be there. Right? So organization commitment to the digitalizations, I think, is a very important aspect what they need to embrace. Technology is available, amply available, and today the technology has proven that if it is used appropriately, it will yield better ROI. I don't think there is any questions about it. But identification of the technology, identification of problem statement, commitment from the top management to see that the end of the program gets implemented. After the implementation, stay tuned on that, get regular feedback and see whether it has provided the value that you thought is very important in the overall process.
Sure.
So I just want to add one small thing here while Parthaji was saying about these things. There have been a lot of studies in the West because they do a lot of surveys and studies on how to cut cost and how to bring in the feedback of customer to. So there is a lot of focus in the West regarding the feedback from customers. But if you embark on any project where you plan to reduce costs or increase revenues, that project itself has cost, and you always have budgetary restrictions. So what they start with basic customer feedback and then implement them on the processes existing which are running. They save a small cost, right? They save a small cost. That then becomes their budget. Then they increase the feedback process and the area where they're working. Then they save additional cost. By this way, they have a plan. The management has a plan that in the next 3, 4, 5 years, they will actually cover the entire organization process. They'll cover the entire products. They'll cover all the geographies, being cost neutral. That is very, very critical. That is very, in case you have budgetary, unless you have the funds coming from a big investor who is not interested, you're just making the GMVs. Otherwise, the normal companies, the traditional companies, basically are very much focused on service, and they want to be as near to the cost as possible to avoid costs. So as Parthaji just said rightly, that the digitization has to ultimately reflect in the revenues. It has to have the benefits. Otherwise, just having digitization will be actually counterproductive. You will actually add more people, and when the whole thing bursts, you will actually unemployment in hand. So that is not the way to go.
And thanks for adding that point, Anil. It is a really very important, self-funding of these projects are a very good way to start.
Yes,
and
yes.
if you are not doing that and always you are trying to get some money, then the digitization will keep waiting and it will never happen.
Absolutely.
Great. So ultimately, it is important to understand the impact that the digitization process would bring in.
Right.
To not just go for ad hoc digital transformation projects, rather do an impact analysis and impact study. Look at what are your mission critical processes and how you can get ROI out of such interventions. And another aspect which Mr. Partha has rightly pointed out is, user adoption of these technologies that are deployed is very imperative. If user adoption is at a lower end, you would never realize the true ROI, even after investing heavily on technologies. So organizations have to be cognizant about it and invest, even though it's a fractional cost, but do factor in and invest towards getting your users ready to adopt the technology that you're deploying. And Mr. Anil, very nice example that you've shared about how self-funding can also help when to actually realize the digital transformation that an organization wants to take on. So with that, we are closer to a wrap of the structured questions, like I mentioned, but we would be, now taking up a few questions from our attendees. Users is what comes to my mind naturally right now. So some of our attendees had sent us questions pre-hand. So I'll be taking that up one by one. Prior to that, just a reminder, on 25th of September at 4 p.m., that is next Friday, we will be conducting our next Qbinar with TA professionals, and they will be talking about maneuvering through the maze of virtual hiring. What are the practices that they have adopted and what is the way forward from here on? So with that, let's start with the Q&A session for today. Like I mentioned, we had received a couple of questions. And just a second, my phone is freezing. Yeah, so the first question is for Mr. Anil. Mr. Anil, in what ways do you see customer expectations to change over the next few years? We have talked about historical changes, but what about the future? How would futuristic expectations change?
So if I may divide these into two parts, one is the individual customer and one is the institutional customer, maybe a B2B. Individual customer will be more towards personalization. So the solutions and the products and the services that we offer to him will be more in demand. Those services which are of more of a personalized nature and character, because general days of general products and generalization are over. People like to have customized things. They like to have customized experiences, basically. And second is that people also would like to have more digital connect with the brands they're consuming. Channel access to the brand and omni-channel access to the way they interact with the brand is very critical. And customers would also like to have their mindset on innovation, because if you have product which is running same for the last 10 years, people get bored now. So you would need to be continuously evaluating new things that can be added as part of the package. So innovation and digital connect, personalization, and the wholesome experience. And I think a gradual move is also happening towards products and services which are environmentally very sensitive. So people are also giving weightage to the consciousness of the brand towards environment and other subjects which are very critical for our climate and environment, how brands are getting linked to those things. So these 4 or 5 things I think are things to be we have to look for the future from an individual perspective. From an institutional guy's perspective, a B2B guy, vendors, he needs to have somebody who is more consistent, who is digitally alive and kicking, who are financially viable, because we have seen a lot of financial inviability in India. So you have vendors who are going bust overnight and they are not on the radar. Particularly in the financial sector, we have seen banks go down overnight. So a lot of money, and we have seen some cooperative banks also disappearing. So vendors and service providers who are financially viable is very critical. So people will not mind paying, I think, a bit of a higher premium for services where they are assured of the quality, the trust of the brand, and the B2B guys are also saving, as they want to have a seamless experience with the transactions. So they want to be associated with the service provider who is providing them the technology, enablement, responsiveness, omni-channel access to their services, and who are actually non-silo kind of people, who are not silo guys. They're non-silo guys, because Earlier, a phone manufacturer only manufactured a phone, but now he has to manufacture earbuds also. He has to manufacture speakers also, pads also, everything. If he provides only one thing of high quality and others are provided by, say, Chinese companies, then it doesn't make any sense. So value-based selling has to be on a very wholesome level of experience. I think these are the key indicators where I think the future say customers will get connected.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Anil, for sharing your views. So, Mr. Partha, the next question has been directed to you. And this was already once touched upon by Mr. Anil during the previous question. Customers also consider the environmental or the social impact that the companies have. So what are your recommendations to companies with regards to their external branding on these aspects?
A very important point, and Anil did spoke a little bit on this topic. So what I want to talk about that again, when you are looking at any of this kind of a project, the multiple impact to be studied, including the impact on this the so-called social media. Here, my request on the social media thing is more to do with identifications of the which part of the which channel of the social media you would like to go for, right? I was trying to speak earlier also on this topic. I want to repeat this once more for everybody's consumptions, that identification of the right social media and then checking out that what could the impact if you go with that social media is very important. Like for example, for any B2B customer, the LinkedIn could be a better social media maybe compared to Facebook. But if you look at, and then this is all our work experience, if I look at a hospital segment, the mid-category hospital, so-called nursing homes, they don't have any LinkedIn page, but they all have a Facebook page. So some point of time, we feel that B2B would be more to do with the LinkedIn, but in India, the lot many this kind of hospitals, let's say till 100 bed, till 50 bed, till 30 bed, 40 bed, because they are the majority of the numbers, right? Indian healthcare situations are still dominated by this kind of a small players. They are not dominated by the Max and Apple and the Fortis of the world, right? They are only in metros, they are not everywhere. So these hospitals actually are present in Facebook. So if you have to reach out to them, LinkedIn may not be the medium at all. So it has to be a separate or maybe a Facebook oriented channel that you have to look at, right? So here, the understanding the impact that how these particular things will work through that particular media or social media channel, I would like to provide more emphasis on that. Number two is some point of time is that it's very difficult to judge that how we get the impact that of anything that we are running and how the feedback that we're getting from the social media. So a lot of times we leave it on social media themselves to create some post, etc. But certain point of time, I think with the help of some agencies, it is important to run some campaign to get the feedback, right? There are times when we run campaign to sell a product, right? Or popularize any particular feature of a product, etc. But there are times when we have to run campaigns to understand the efficacy of something has been worked out. And through those campaigns, we may get probably better responses and ideas of how this particular things has worked out. And this is not often practiced, or probably I don't know that if it has been practiced often, because till the time whenever, most of the time I get to hear or we get to design mostly for campaigning for a feature, but campaigning for getting a feedback probably needs to be added in that list.
Okay, so interesting. So it's not just that the customers are cognizant now about the environmental and social impact, but obviously companies now have to think about how are they branding themselves externally on this front, and thus having a solid social media strategy in place, evaluating which would be the right fit platforms for your sort of customers engagement. So that is also important, and that is the kind of strategy that organizations should think about. They should think about having even an external outflow or a campaign of sorts, not just to sell the product or the service, but to gather feedback. So these are some of the important things that organizations have to understand. They have to partner with organizations who can help them on these multiple fronts. Don't just think about, just what you can do, but how maybe within your ecosystem, how partners can help you in, on these multiple aspects of providing an exceptional customer experience. So these are some of the things that organizations and professionals should make a note of. Thank you so much to our speakers. These were the couple of questions that we had pre-received for the Q&A session from our registered attendees. So with that, we are closer to a wrap. I first want to thank all of our attendees who have joined us on YouTube for today's Qbinar, that is quarantine webinar. Thank you so much. There have been several of you who have been regulars with us for the past several months. Thank you for all of your support. And if there is any specific topic that you wish to hear the views of industry leaders, please share those topics with us. And if there is a proper fitment of the topic and we are able to look at good fit of speakers for it, we would certainly like to bring upcoming Qbinars on those things. So along with that, now I take this opportunity to thank both of our speakers, Mr. Partha as well as Mr. Anil, for sharing your insights, your observations, the learnings, not just what has happened in the past or what is happening currently, but also giving us some futuristic perspective to think and ponder upon. So thank you to both of our speakers for being a part of today's panel discussion and sharing your valuable time with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Have a nice day. Thanks.
So with that, it is Creating Values Qbinar Fridays signing off for today. Thank you.
Thanks.